Scrappers, it's Tom from the iScrap app, and today I'm going to interview my sister Virginia, who's been working with me for the last 10 years. We've been working together from Rockaway Recycling to iScrap to Rockaway National, RR Cats, and just learning as we go. And today we just wanted to sit down and talk about some early scrap memories, her opinion and perspective on the industry and kind of where things went. So, I would thank you, but you work across the hall from me, so certainly I hope the commute was short and sweet. And it was funny because I was talking to Dad when we did our first podcast on this, and I heard a bunch of his stories.
Yep.
And before I jump into your opinion on the scrap market, where the markets are going, all that type of thing, give me your first scrap memory completely, off the cuff.
Has to be I was probably 6 or 7 at the time, and here at Rockaway Recycling, I remember being here on a Saturday morning, and obviously in the brass pile we get cymbals, and I remember saying to Dad, I'm like, I want to create a drum set with these cymbals.
Yeah.
So I went outside, I got a bunch of 5-gallon buckets, set them up like drums around me. I think I got like random brass rods and like taped cymbals to them.
That's funny.
And I just sat outside playing them. So that would definitely be one of the earlier ones. And
10 or 15 years after that, we actually made a video for Rockaway Recycling with a guy that used to work here named Ernie, who was a drummer, and he took all brass cymbals and 5-gallon buckets.
Way better job than I would have done.
He did a job playing. I mean, and I think it's one of the craziest things. I don't know when you talk to your friends or other people, like, oh, what do you do? And you try to explain it.
Yeah.
And it's just such a different place. The scrap world is such a different place. And even though you're not down in the yard like I was, it has to be really interesting. We post all these cool pictures, and I have these stories, and then you have stories. And we talk to scrapyard owners and then scrappers. So outside of your own experience, what are some of the coolest things that you've learned from the industry, talking to scrapyard owners, being part of management, and then just working with scrappers through the iScrap app?
Yeah, I mean, one of the biggest things from off the cuff that I say is like we are in an industry that people will never know anything about unless you're in this industry.
Or you need to get rid of something.
Yeah, there's no reason for people to know anything about scrap metal unless you bring material to a scrapyard or you're in the industry as a career or work with them in logistics or things like that. But from one of the cool things that I think I've learned about the industry and those players in it is that they have this rough exterior, but if you get to know them and just talk normal like business with them, they're just like anybody else. Yeah. But I think one of the biggest things in the industry is everybody has this perception that like the scrap yards are like rough and tough, and scrappers are all rough and tough, and yes, that is part of it, but they're also just trying to make money, and it's just a different type of career than most people see.
And I've told everyone that I consider the scrap industry this white blue-collar industry.
Oh, yeah.
Where I'm sitting here with the polo shirt on with the logo on, and you're sitting here Under Armour with another logo, right? But I'm wearing my Carhartt pants and my work boots, and it's like a Jekyll and Hyde. I can be in the yard working, but I could also be in the office doing recordings like this or conference calls. And I think that a lot of people from the scrapper perspective don't understand what a big industry it is.
Yeah.
They see piles of scrap when they come to scrap yards, and they see pictures that we post online. But what has your opinion been from talking to so many scrappers, what they kind of think of the overall industry outside of making money?
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the biggest things is that what scrappers really do enjoy, I think, is the hunt.
Okay.
And so it's almost like, yes, they like to make money, but outside of that, I think a lot of the conversations that I've had with scrappers is they like to just learn how they can hunt different types of materials down and figure out how they work. I recently was talking to somebody on the scrap metal Reddit page.
Okay.
And he simply just had a bunch of different crates of different materials sorted. And someone immediately commented and said, wow, you really know what you're doing. And he goes, I've learned over the years that if I sort it better, the scrapyard treats me better because he's doing more of the work for them. So I think that whole hunt of not just finding the material, but learning about the industry and figuring out how scrapyards work with different materials and what they're expecting of their customers is like a kind of like a good transition into how we at iScrap have been able to connect those scrappers to the scrapyards to kind of have more of that understanding of what people's priorities are. Like scrappers want to make money, and so do scrapyards. But if scrappers can make it easier for scrapyards to make money, it's kind of just this nice little...
Well, it's been cool because that's been the perspective we had at Rockaway Recycling. If we show the customers how to sort and separate materials, that was one of the things that I started 14 years ago when I took over. They can make more money, but in turn, I would be doing less work when I was working in the yard, or the people that we have now are doing less work because if you cut your copper, if you sort your brass, if you strip your aluminum wire, or whatever it is, and you learn about categories. And I think that by us teaching people at Rockaway Recycling, when we do podcasts like this and people are listening to us talk, have you learned that has been really one of the best things that the scrappers have been happy about? Or what do you think, from a scrapper point of view, iScrap has done for them?
I think a little bit of both. I think, obviously we're a little biased that iScrap is a great resource to scrappers, but
Yes.
I even think without iScrap, with technology and the way social media is these days, scrappers still would have been able to learn it. Because now people are sharing it through videos on YouTube, through podcasts, through posts on Facebook groups and things like that. And I think one of the biggest things is that being able to kind of mesh the technology with this industry that's so archaic and so material based has really allowed scrappers to just really have more of a respect for learning that. And again, kind of going back to my original point is like this hunt for the material, the hunt to figure out.
They love to brag about things when they find them in jobs.
Exactly. And being able to be like, look at this, I don't know, this item that I found. I've never seen one like this. What do you guys think? And then you'll have people bringing in their own resources and their own experiences and tagging like articles and being able to kind of have this collaborative industry that has been so just basic, like transactional. And now being able to have this information that's being spread through the internet really has kind of made it an interesting industry to be a part of the last 10 years, because I don't think it would have ever been like this even with conversations with Dad, nobody knew this type of information, but you could do a quick Google search of like, what's in a washer machine? And a scrapper could figure out exactly what's in a washer machine before they pick it up.
Yeah, I talked about this with Dad, the pushback that he had in 2006, when I told him I was going to put the prices online, right? And we've learned that the scrap yards really disliked us for doing that.
Oh yeah,
scrap. So
sometimes they still do.
and that's fine, but we're trying to teach people how to make more money, show people what things are worth. And we were sitting down in a meeting earlier today, creating and redoing our mission statement, and we were all talking about what's our goal, what are we trying to do every day, and the words we were throwing out was transparency and showing scrappers where to get information and being a resource for them. Over the next couple of years, we're in 2021, we've gone through pandemics and low times and market turns. From someone who's not buying and selling scrap, but working in the scrap industry where you know what's going on, you might not know the dollars and cents, but you see perspective from the scrappers. How have you seen their reactions change because of the transparency that people like us at the iScrap app have provided?
Yeah, it's kind of a good question. It's like a twofold, because obviously they like more information, but I've also realized over the years is that when the market goes down, the overall attitude is very poor. From
how so? Talking about it, or
scrappers are a little bit more negative about their scrap yards, them getting lower prices or getting nickel and dimed on certain materials.
Do you think because they don't understand how the overall markets are?
I think
because
they're
just upset?
I think it's a little bit of both. I think they don't understand. I think they think scrapyards will just keep their prices regardless of where the market's going, not realizing that a lot of scrapyards have to move prices because they've got to make a profit.
Hey, today we saw the copper markets drop 14 cents.
Yep.
And on Friday we saw the markets drop 6 cents.
Yep.
And I don't want to change my prices, but I don't want to lose money either. We're not in this.
Yeah,
You know.
I think it's like a twofold because a lot of scrappers do realize that scrap yards do have to change their prices, but those that don't realize, I think the negative attitude that I was kind of getting at was also they're just upset they're not making as much money.
Oh yeah.
And so they might say, oh, last year, a perfect example, over the last 3 or 4 years, aluminum has been terrible in terms of pricing.
Yep.
And more recently, with the aluminum prices going back up the second half of 2021, a lot of scrappers are talking more about aluminum. They're clicking.
Yeah, they never talked about aluminum.
No, and they're talking about aluminum. They're talking about cutting ACR fins and getting all that steel off of the side of it. So, like, I've seen with the fluxes of different industries and the prices, the attitude and what certain types of topics are being talked about. I mean, same example goes on the flip side of the coin. When the copper prices shot up in the beginning of this year, I think it was beginning of February or middle of February.
March, yeah.
And it was like 18-year highs or whatever crazy highs it was. Everybody was talking about copper. Everybody was happy.
Yeah.
Everybody was showing off their receipts and showing off their loads of copper. And then it kind of fizzled out and everybody kind of got quiet about copper.
Yeah.
So now it's kind of like the aluminum part of it is getting loud. And same thing with steel. When steel goes up or down, people have the same. It's interesting because the attitude and the attitude and just the content of what scrappers are talking about or asking questions about kind of follow suit with the market.
See, I'd like to talk about that because on a personal note, I don't really participate in social media, but on a scrapyard business side, iScrap note, we're in social media every day. I'm logging in, I'm looking at posts, I'm reading comments. What has been one of the more surprising things, because you were doing the social media for so many years until we expanded our team, you've seen the growth of the scrappers posting things on iScrap, emailing us questions, good and bad. What have you seen the last just 5 years from a YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok point of view? Where do you think scrap is going to go from here?
I think one of the biggest trends that I've seen, and maybe we had something to do with it, maybe not, maybe it's a little bit of both, is that scrappers are way more educated than they were years ago.
I would agree with that.
I think the questions that they come up with are well thought. They're deep thinking in terms of not just what material is this, but like what should I expect from my scrapyard for this? Or where do you see the market trend going for this? Or how do you see...
Should I hold or sell?
Yeah, or even they ask great questions now about like, hey, I saw this big economic news headline. How is that going to affect X? So they are starting to consume a little bit more of a deeper understanding of the market and how that relates to them. So I think that has been a big thing over the last few years. And moving forward, I think one of the bigger things is now with the explosion of different communities online and using the iScrap app to report prices and just be a bit more involved, I think we're going to see scrappers not only continue to ask those questions, but be more of the solution of being more transparent in the industry by allowing or by contributing their own thoughts.
See, it's been really interesting because when we ask a lot of questions, when we do, whether it's a questionnaire that we send out through email or a post that we put on Facebook and we ask people their opinions, when they start to tell us different things that they're doing, that they're talking about, it's been really interesting to see what they think, where they think the markets are going. They're trying to predict things in advance, and I'm not taking any responsibility for anything except talking about it to people. But we've been in every week for 6-7 years, every Wednesday almost, we've been talking about market news and getting more people to view it. And I know people probably get bored listening to me, but what we've tried to do in the last couple of years, really since kind of COVID hit, is try to explain these macro point of views, these domino effects. And have you started to see, since people have had their phones in their hands more and talking with each other more, that their questions are becoming smarter, that they're helping predict things, that they're starting to tie together oil prices and then steel and then copper.
Yeah.
Have you started to see a more educated scrapper than you did a few years ago?
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, like I mentioned before, I mean, just alone with the questions that they have, you could just tell that they're just
Paying
a bit
attention,
more,
I think.
yeah, a bit more conscious of what is going on around. And I think because it's so easy to get news these days, to check markets, and really the explosion of smartphones has allowed everybody to have resources at their fingertips at any time. And I think that being able to be a part of educating scrappers and teaching them a little bit more beyond just, hey, this is how you separate something, but instead have them think, hey, this recent trade agreement is affecting aluminum or is affecting copper. Being able to bring those two points together and connect them has really allowed the scrappers, and especially the younger generation coming up, to just be a bit more in tune with that. Which has which has kind of helped us be a bit more advanced with our tips and how we've been able to expand the knowledge that we share with them. Because it's not just like sort your copper from your brass. It's more of like, yes, sort your copper from your brass, but copper prices are going down, so you might want to hold on to your copper. But maybe you sell your aluminum right now. So being able to take it to another level of education of the industry and how the market is affecting it has really been something that I've seen, just sharing knowledge online.
Has to be super interesting. I mean, I see that the transfer of knowledge and the information will wrap up the little, back and forth with how do you see technology and tools like the iScrap app and industry transparency and scrap yards acknowledging that scrappers are not just a way for them to make money, but scrappers have to be serviced by the scrap yards to be able to build a bond. Where do you think the industry is going to go because of technology and because of tools like the iScrap app over the next few years?
Unfortunately, I think some scrapyards are going to be left behind because they're not going to adopt technology. And I think that those that are adopting technology, whether it's websites, software at their doors that are buying it, educating their customers on and being more transparent about their prices, I think scrapyards are going to be left behind. But I also think it's going to be because scrappers are going to be willing to change scrapyards that they use.
Interesting.
And kind of get a better sense of what's available. They may not have known 10 years ago that there was a scrapyard down the street that paid $20 more per ton for steel, but now they know that because they could find it on a Google search, or they could find it on iScrap, or they could find an updated price that was shared on a Facebook group. So I think that scrapyards that don't adopt technology, I think will be left in the dust, because I think technology is moving so quickly and entering this new generation of scrap that I think scrapyards are going to either make or break over the next few years.
I think that point wraps everything up in a really good view, because I think that scrappers' standards have been risen, opposed to just getting stuff out of their truck, getting a couple of bucks in their pocket and leaving from there. And I'm really excited for the next few years of iScrap and Rockaway Recycling and the growth that we have, and just showing the peddlers, showing the scrappers, showing the scrap yards how we're all connected and figuring out different and new exciting ways to work together. So, hey, awesome interview. Super pumped that we were able to do this. We'll do this again. We'll talk about other topics. This is Tom from the iScrap app. Any other questions, podcast questions for Virginia? Let us know, and we'll scrap you later. Thanks for checking out our scrap videos. By becoming a Patreon supporter today, you'll be entered into monthly giveaways for tools and other products to help you make more money with your scrap.